Celeste to me is more than just a game, but rather an experience. From the very first moment you even look at the game's art style, right away you can tell that this game is going to be something special. And don't even get me started on the music, which fits perfectly into each chapter's gameplay. But none of that is really all that important. What can be said that hasn't been already said about the game's narrative and themes? Because I've never found myself relating to a video game's protagonist quite like Madeline. I started playing this game way back in July 2021 and knew something was up when I realized around 3 hours into the game, stuck on chapter 3, that I wasn't angry. I was more frustrated and annoyed than feeling the need to throw my controller across the room, and I think that's partially due to the quick death and respawn time, taking only around 2 to 3 seconds. Compare that to other platformers like Mario, and you can see how important it is for a game like this to not punish the player too much, but also challenge them enough where they want to keep coming back for more. And I think that's the beauty of Celeste's overall gameplay. It just feels good to play regardless of how bad you're doing. As for my first experience, I beat Chapter 3 and stopped playing for a few months for some reason, but eventually I came back to it, and I came back during a time where I was self-isolating myself after dealing with a lot of personal stress. And what's even crazier is that where I left off in Chapter 4, that chapter sort of is the exact same theme of self-isolation when you come to think of it. Like, through most of the chapter, you don't really talk to anyone. No Theo, Madeline, Mr. Oshiro, Bird, nobody. You only talk to Granny very briefly where she continues to mock you on your journey. What a coincidence. Another odd coincidence is that this new series that I am trying out is very similar to Madeline's new journey to climb Celeste Mountain. And while Madeline may be trying to prove something to herself, I'm simply just doing this series for fun. Because why not? I don't have much else going on in my life right now, so I'm trying something new. However, another journey that I've been on for the past 7+ months now is that I'm currently trying to become a full-time content creator, a goal that I've only ever attempted once before, back in 2017 when I was in high school and had a lot more free time on my hands. But that's not important. What is important though is how this game has impacted not just me, but many others also. For one, the dialogue feels genuine with every character you talk to. Granny is condescending when you first meet her. She seems rude at first, but as you get to know her more over time, you realize that she's just giving it to you as it is, a reality check if you will. And this advice she gives ultimately helps you confront your anxiety, represented by Madeline in Chapter 6, the point of the game where you, the player, hit rock bottom. Theo, on the other hand, is friendly when you first meet him, and as you go through the game more, your friendship with him develops more, and it is, by far, one of the most wholesome things I have ever seen in any form of media. However, he isn't without his flaws, one of which being his carefree nature, which gets you and himself into trouble numerous times. He is also obsessed with his social media presence, being a photographer and needing to capture every moment and share it with his followers. You even see this insecurity manifest in Chapter 5 when he's trapped in an ice crystal surrounded by eyes looking at him. Mr. Oshiro is probably the most insecure one out of the bunch, having an entire chapter dedicated to you trying to help him clean up his hotel, but his insecurities, manifested by this red fuzz, keep getting in the way and eventually culminate to this final fight with him, all because Madeline insulted him at the worst possible time. But Mr. Oshiro is just a very lonely person, and the way he copes and deals with those emotions is very unhealthy. And Madeline. Where do I even begin? Okay. I guess I can talk about both Madeline and Madeline here, in case it wasn't obvious. Madeline is Madeline's anxiety, insecurities, self-doubts, self-hatred, and fears all manifested into one entity who torments you throughout the game as you continue to try and avoid her. But Madeline isn't an obstacle that you should avoid, but a part of you that you need to confront. And it takes Madeline a fair amount of time to figure this out, with the help of Granny's advice, of course. Eventually, Madeline realizes that she can't get rid of this part of herself, So she instead confronts it in epic fashion and sorts things out with her, ultimately having a better understanding of herself in the process. Years ago, back when I was in high school and struggling with some strong emotions for the very first time, there was a point where I made the exact same mistake Madeline made at the end of chapter 5, where I felt I could just let go of my shadow self, my inner demon, as I called it. But that was one of the biggest mistakes I have ever made. Not embracing both my good and my bad, not confronting my so-called trauma, and ultimately that led to more damage in the end for me. As I also, too, hit rock bottom during December 2018 for the first time. Of course, though, eventually things got better, but I was continuing to make the same mistake over and over and over again, trying to leave that part of me behind, and that was just leading to the same outcome until it ultimately manifested itself into a new alter ego I created in 2021 called Chad. I know the name's stupid. And this isn't the first time I did something like this, because back in 2017, when I was dealing with a similar situation, I created an alter ego called, get this, Lone Wolf. Yeah, I'm gonna stop naming my alter egos from now on. Anyways, regardless of what my name was, regardless of what name this part of me was, it was the same thing. My unhealthy way of coping with my past and ultimately myself. I recently found a way to cope with my anxiety, and that is to treat tasks at face value. Like, for instance, if I'm going out to get food, I often find myself stuttering when giving the order for some reason. So what I did to counter this was treating this more as an inconvenience rather than something to get worked up over. And it worked. The same thing applies too also when you're going out to hang out with a friend. It's the same thing. You treat it as something to look forward to. Treat it at face value. Live in the now. My good friend Maddie 2 years ago gave me this advice when I was going to my graduation ceremony, where she told me to just live in the moment. So I did, and it went really well. So thank you, Maddie. And I'm sorry it took me a while to fully understand this myself. Now I just need to practice this more going forward. Playing this game in December 2021 when I was self-isolating myself after having a huge falling out with all my friends, I felt an overwhelming sensation of catharsis and joy. Like, this game is just so wholesome and lighthearted, but it's also real with you. Every character, dialogue, interaction just feels meaningful in some way. Whether it be just Madeline and Theo talking about what they want to do with their futures, to Granny giving you advice on how to cope with the negative part of herself. When I played this game truly for the first time, I felt, for like the first time in months, during that time that I wasn't alone. And the interactions with Theo and Madeline remind me of my friend that I met earlier that same year, JJ, who I would spend hours and hours on end talking with her, staying up late at night on Discord calls, and just vibing together. Thank you, JJ. Despite how crummy 2020 might have been for me, you made it a lot easier to deal with, and I'm happy to have you as a friend. Thank you for being there for me when no one else was. Celeste is pretty much perfect in every way, from the deep and intricate story and characters to the little things like the art style and music This game truly changed my life and impacted me in such a way like no other game has ever done before. Thank you to everyone who made Celeste. You guys truly made something beautiful that will impact many players for years to come. Thank you.